This will be my last uh, podcast from Canada as I fly back tomorrow to Japan. So let me start with my impressions of Canada. What I got as my understanding of the people in charge of Canada is that there's two levels to it. On the one hand, the political class, as you all know, has been thoroughly compromised, bribed, blackmailed, controlled. They're just actors. They have no um, real authority. So we understand that. The problem is the military and the police and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service people who were obeying orders. Okay. Now, these people thought they were fighting a pandemic, that they were saving lives. In other words, they sincerely thought they were trying to prevent lots of people from dying. So the point I wish to make here is that most of the people in the military, the medical community, the agencies who are not part of the satanic cabal, who really did believe they were fighting a pandemic. So the problem is not with them, and they should not be punished for thinking they were saving lives. We need to focus on the liars who lied to them about the need for vaccines, because the lies are there and they're obvious to all of us now. For one thing, COVID did not kill any more people than a common cold. That's the first thing. The second thing, of course, is they faked the statistics and they relabeled pneumonia, flu, everything else COVID to create this medical dictatorship. So the problem, anyway, in Canada is that so many people in the establishment have been involved that there's a kind of paralysis here. They don't want to take action. And I did go to the Algonquin Reservation to ask to meet the elders because today is a blue moon and it is time for a war council, I wanted to tell them. The reason we need a war council is the same reason the Asian secret societies woke up from their sleep, which is that uh, they're trying to kill you and they're trying to kill your family. So it's not something where you can just sit back and watch it on your screen. You have to take action. So the bottom line, though, is that we cannot right now have a real old-fashioned war council at, for example, Kitigan Zibi, which is the Algonquin nation just north of where I am, because if you gather a lot of important people in analog form in these days, all it would take is one missile, and that's it. So we're going to be holding a war council. It's going to be in September, where it's going to be virtual at first, but everyone who's listening to this needs to get on the phone, needs to talk to people they actually personally know, people they've physically met in person, so they know they're real, they're not just some kind of internet creation. And we are on a war footing. Everybody understands that the government in the United States is now criminal and dysfunctional. Everybody knows that Joe Biden is an actor reading a script, and a lot of people realize that Barack Obama is actually the person pulling the strings behind the Biden administration. But I'd have to say that Obama is got authority in some areas. So, for example, he is probably the guy behind this huge push for all sorts of homosexual stuff because he himself is homosexual and his wife is a trans, so they're out there pushing that on everybody. This is the sort of thing. But at the deeper level, in terms of control of the financial system, Obama is still just a house slave, a hired hand, same as, I'm afraid to say, Biden and possibly even Donald Trump. We still need the person appearing in public as Donald Trump to explain why he did Operation Warp Speed. As things stand now, I think that we have a better presidential candidate in Colonel Douglas McGregor, and I hope that people understand that because he's the real deal. He's actually very intelligent and he's self-educated as well as university educated. But the point is that if you listen to him talk, you can tell that he's thinking for himself. He's not reading a script. He's the real deal. That's the sort of person we'll need for a Putin-like strong leader to rebuild the America that is going bankrupt, that has gone bankrupt. There's a lot of fighting behind the scenes, but basically, what I'm hearing from the Russians and from the Asians is that they're not going to negotiate with the people currently in charge in the West. Okay, they're not going to negotiate with Macron or with Biden or with Sunak or with Scholz or any of the other Western puppet leaders. They're waiting for that system to collapse, and it is going to collapse. The BRICS now control 80% of the world's oil market, and there's huge moves to cut off the resource theft from Africa. Uh, it's not being reported much, but I'm hearing that the move in Niger is just part of a bigger move that's going to include Libya. It's also now include, I believe, Ghana. In other words, uh, resource theft by multinational corporations from Africa is going to be stopped. And that means that most of the mega corporations involved in taking resources from Africa, and I'm afraid France, are in big trouble as a result of this. But that's the move I'm hearing. The other move I'm hearing about is there's something big is scheduled for East Asia. This could include the reunification of the Korean Peninsula, uh, Taiwan with China, and of course the end of the post-war occupation regime in Japan. Something is going to give, but the real question will be September 30th when the United States Corporation has yet another payments deadline, and I don't see what they're going to do other than have to declare public bankruptcy. And the point people need to understand is that the dollar is not going to be collapsed. I keep repeating this. It's hard to get your head around this, but the US dollar is already controlled by the BRICS nations. They have the nations of the world outside of the G7 uh, have basically said, we are going to quarantine the dollars that we've earned since World War II by selling real stuff from new dollars being pumped into the West through the stock market, through people like Elon Musk. And that's what's causing the inevitable collapse. So there's going to be a lot of hardship in September, is my best guess, before things collapse. And we're going to try to have an orderly transition, but right now it does not look that way. It looks like the cabal is going to use every means they have. They're going to be spreading diseases. They're going to be using their satellites. They're going to be trying to kill people and blame it on UFOs and God knows what else. So we do need to actually actively hunt these people down, bring them to justice, take them out of control of the major corporations. And the people, obviously, who really need to be rounded up ASAP are the management of Google, because they're the ones who are supporting the war criminal Tedros of the WHO in promoting lies about a fake pandemic, among other crimes. Of course, Bill Gates, it's amazing he's still around. Hillary Clinton, all these people, we're going to be hunting them down. It's going to be a big fight, but we all need to take action. It's time for a war council, and that will happen in September. But as things stand, the rest of the world has already abandoned the U.S. corporation, and they're waiting for it to implode before negotiating with the successors. One last thing I want to talk about is the head of Wagner, Prigozhin, being having his plane blown up. Uh, I'm now being told by MI6 and all sorts of people that actually he just faked his death, and you know, I don't believe it, because every time they kill someone really important and they're worried about retaliation, They say, oh, well, he changed his name, changed his identity, and he's still alive, uh, but we can't prove it. So, that's not going to wash. Uh, but I can also say, from talking to real Russian FSB sources, is that they do not consider Prigozhin to be one of theirs. Okay? He runs a private corporation, and they have been found, Wagner has been found guilty of human rights, and the Russian government is not happy with this. They've been found guilty of human rights abuses in Africa and to a lesser extent in the Ukraine, but these people will be punished, and the collusion between Zelensky of the Ukraine and Prigozhin in the murder of tens of thousands of Ukrainian men is a war crime. It's not going to go unpunished. If he really did fake his death to avoid war crimes charges, it's not going to work. In any case, uh, expect situation to get worse in September, and everybody get ready to fight because we're going to have to get rid of these people. It's anybody who's still using their own brain understands the government is controlled by your enemy. They're not the friends of the people. They're not democratically elected, and they illegally seize control of corporations. So we're fighting to for a jubilee, a cancellation of all debt, a one-off thing, a redistribution of assets, and a restoration of democracy and the rule of law, and we're going to win. All right, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. The next broadcast will be in Japan. I'll have a lot to report once I hear from my Asian sources what's going on there. But I'm hearing big things in East Asia this fall. Okay, now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. In your last video, it felt like you inferred something was going to happen in Japan. Am I correct? And if so, what is it?
Well, obviously, I cannot say exactly what it will be, or I will give a warning to people who would try to stop that. But we have an Obama agent by the name of Rahm Emanuel, who is now the U.S. ambassador to Japan. So, what I'll start by doing is asking him for a formal interview. And let's see if he's willing to talk on the record with me. And if not, then we'll make the next move against the U.S. occupation regime. This will not be an end to the Japanese-U.S. military alliance, merely the removal of the Khazarian mafia subset that controls the politicians in Japan. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. Do you have any information about why Shinzo Abe was killed? From your past blog, I understand it was Henry Kissinger who was behind his death, but what was the reason? Please share if you know anything about it.
Well, Abe was going off the reservation. For example, he did stop 1.6 million contaminated vaccinations from being administered to the Japanese people, and he was also pushing for He was a nationalist. He was also a member of the Lee royal family, and in particular the Korean branch of the Lee family. So he was considered to be an Asian royal, and the fact that he was murdered was an attempt by Kissinger and the Rockefellers behind him to reassert control over Japan by killing the most prominent nationalist in that country, but it's backfiring. It's blowing up in their faces. They've lost their major ally, the Unification Church. That's a whole, can of worms we'll get into another day. But the point is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that very powerful institution, which is, Korean-based, is now on the warpath against the Khazarian mafia. And that's the end result of what Kissinger did. In any case, Kissinger is finished. He's not going to influence events anymore. The Rockefellers are going to be removed. And Kissinger should bow gracefully out of the world stage at this point. Next question.
who is selecting the DEW targets, and why have they not been targeted or shut down by now?
Uh, that is a very good question, but you have to look at quo bene. Now, if you look at all the DEW attacks in California, they kind of go in a straight line. And it's apparently they're trying to clear the route for some kind of high-speed bullet train that they're planning to connect to Asia. So now, what about Hawaii? Well, here the obvious point is that the Hawaii independence movement and the native Hawaiians were the target of this attack. So clearly, this was an attempt to stop Hawaii from becoming independent of the United States of America Corporation. So the people benefiting from both the Hawaii thing and the California thing, if you follow the trail, it does lead to Obama, and behind that to the Rothschilds. And just look at who's buying all the real estate in Maui and California. You can find the people involved, but it's the same cast of characters. We have to go into Switzerland. We have to remove them from control of the UN, the WHO, the BIS, the World Bank, all that stuff. They need to be. You need to go right to the top. Just dealing with the California or the Hawaii branch of the octopus is not going to end this. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Are the Giuliani and Trump surrenders part of the collective surrender of the Khazarian mafia, or are they isolated cases?
The whole thing does look like performance. It's political theater. It's high drama. It's reality television, whatever it is. What? 4 times, 5 times they indict Trump, and it's all theater. Like the Hunter Biden laptop and the Biden crimes. It's all out there. It's all known. So the question now is: are you gonna do your thing, or are you gonna get out of the toilet? It's time for action. We've seen these people counter accuse each other in through their puppet courts, but the real courts aren't functioning. The German lawyer Fulmick, who has been presenting evidence of COVID crimes, hasn't been able to find a single court anywhere on earth to look into this. So you got to understand, it's not going to be sold by theater. It's not going to be sold by the same actors reading different scripts. It's got to be more fundamental than that. But I wish Trump good luck. But let's see these bloody arrests already. Okay, let's see it happen. I want these people off our TVs and in jail where they belong. So until that happens, I'm very skeptical. But I do know that internationally, the United States and the Western elite is isolated, and they are mathematically doomed. Some sort of surrender or collapse is inevitable. But if that comes through Donald Trump or not, let's see. It's up to the man. Let's see if he can, walk the walk and not just talk the talk. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. I hope you are as well rested as you look. South African 1 rand is worth 20 US dollars. When both units are gold backed, will they be more equal in value? Am I wrong in thinking that a ton of gold in South Africa and in the US will have the same value? Is this how countries will be better off? I hope you can explain this to me.
I wish I was more well briefed about the situation in South Africa than I am, but I understand that as things stand, most of the wealth being extracted from South Africa and other African countries, including gold, diamonds, oil, and stuff, is ultimately not going to Africans as things stand. Right now, they pay huge bribes to maybe the president, the defense minister, the commerce minister, the finance minister, maybe the central bank head, maybe 5 people, 6 people. They give them big bribes, they put it in their Swiss bank accounts, and the rest of the money is taken out of the country. So that's going to change. As far as the price of gold is concerned and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. I'm not a market expert in that sense. I don't. I'm a macro guy. I look at the forest, not the trees. But certainly, if you look at gold and silver, for example, in the case of silver, the amount of grain you could buy with a certain amount of silver in 3000 BC is the same as now. The price of a tailor-made suit in ancient Rome in 19th century London and 21st century Tokyo uh, is the same in gold as it ever was. So it'll keep your value. So I do recommend buying physical gold and silver and keeping it in your own house, maybe buried in the garden, something like that. Just avoid numbers in bank accounts right now because some sort of reboot is happening, and uh, people who have lots of money may lose some of it, and people who don't have many, people who have debt will also lose that. Anyway, something's going to happen, and my advice is don't trust numbers in bank computers. Get something that really exists. And okay, so next week I'll be back in Japan, and I'll try to get more on the Korean situation, other things that are happening. But it looks like the summer